Hey guys, it's almost an agreement time. Sam and I are hanging out. AC's got a job like a jackhole. Max is in New Orleans trying to get me to talk to a city councilor from Sweeney, Texas. We'll follow with that a little bit later. If you haven't done so, almostanaagreement.com/cityelections21. Go there. It is a list of everybody that's going to be on this ballot. A brief breakdown of how the city ballots work, as well as links to KGIS to make sure you know which district you're in, and the Knox County Election Commission to make sure you're registered. And if not, you can go through the Election Commission to figure that part out. And then as you scroll down, you can get a brief a picture and a brief summary of each candidate and which district they're in, as well as links to their web pages to learn more about each candidate. And we'll go from there. We're Almost in Agreement. Check us out at almostagreement.com. Almost Agreement at Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the major podcast providers. Give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, all those cool things. Anything you can do to help us grow so that we can get more people interested in understanding and on board with what's going on. So, we're Almost Agreement. Sam and I are going to wreck your brains. Okay. No? Not wrecking brains?
We can try.
I mean, I've been trying to figure out how it's...
Give it the old college try.
So, we've talked before... Or there's been a lot of talk about taxes, especially in the city election. And so I got into a little spat with Miss Gloria Johnson on the Facebooks about it, because there's this chart that's been running around the circles. It's the mayor put something similar out inside her budget, showing how the tax rate for the city has fallen over time, and how they're bragging about, everybody's talking on one side about how, those Democrats in there are going to raise taxes in the city and make it too expensive to live. And then they're showing this chart as look, we've been reducing taxes over the last decade or two. And it's like, you're both wrong. And I got into a little spat with Gloria Johnson about it, because I was like, all right, let me quote myself correctly here. It's like, I'm still having a little hard time understanding. State law says an increase in assessed value cannot lead to an increase in taxes. So, assuming that a property, homes and land, appreciate in value, and therefore assess value, doesn't the rate have to drop over time? So, what my point getting to is that if you bought a house for $100,000, unless you let the house fall apart, it's going to be next, 5, 10, whatever their assessment period is, it's going to go up. It's land. There's only so much of it. We're a growing city. Value's going to go up. And so, the state law requires you, basically, if you're paying $1,000 a year in property tax, as long as you own that house, you'll only pay $1,000 a year in property tax, unless the city or county raises their tax rate. So if the city or county does no change, the tax rate is going to fall. And so that's the thing that I think is confusing to people, because you look at this chart, and I'll see if I can figure out how to put a link in the show notes for everybody else. But if you look at this chart, it looks like since 92, 93, there's been, a couple of little peaks and valleys, but for the most part, it's been going down for the last 25, 30 years. Well, it has to, without a raise in taxes. Because if it's at I can't remember, she says it in here, she's like, currently, the current rate is 2.46%. And they're talking about dropping it to 2.22. But again, I don't know if they're talking about dropping it. I'm not sure how the mechanics work in this, in that the council actually has to go through the process to change the rate officially, but they're required to change the rate by state law. My point is, if and I go on to this because Gloria's like, yes, that's exactly right, blah, 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 blah. And to which I say, okay, as long as I'm understanding what the graphic actually means, not what it implies. And she says, I think there are more graphs, blah, 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 blah. And I say, I agree, but if I didn't know any better, I'd think that chart is telling me that taxes are going down, which is false. Taxes are staying the same. The rate at which you are being taxed is falling because it has to. And it's really, again, like, this chart comes out and everybody's talking about, hey, so we're not raising taxes in the city. We're lowering taxes. Look how low the tax rate is. The tax rate continues to go down. That's the narrative. but they're not lowering taxes. They're lowering the tax rate because they're required to by state law. It's just a little frustrating clarification of the complexness that is stupid.
I mean, the top
taxes.
chart does say city tax rate
I agree.
in a decline. I don't know where that chart came from.
But as a layperson, if you saw this chart
Right.
without the fucking monologue I just went on about it, what would you think if you were talking to a politician and they show you this chart about this is how taxes are in Knoxville? What do you see this chart and think?
I'm not sure how the two go together, but I mean, yeah, one says tax rate, the other one's total debt obligation, which I'm assuming that means we've been paying into our debt obligations.
We've been we've been paying off more than we've been adding to debt, so that's a positive. I'm not opposed to that.
Right.
I don't know. Again, because like the Gloria Johnson's like thing in it is, let's talk facts on city taxes because there's a lot of lies being told in her city council district and they need to be cleared up. Because one of the things, and I don't know, I'm assuming this is in line because there was a syndicated forum a couple weeks ago, and Nick Ciparo. I'm sorry, man. He doesn't care. He thinks it's funny. Anyway, he was saying that he got called a liar for saying that his taxes are going to go up, which I don't know the math on his house because again, if they'd go from 2.46 right now to 2.22, that's a 2.4% decrease or 0.24% decrease. And that's assuming that there is going to be a 30% increase in home value. So I think mathematically, you're going to end up paying a little bit more. So it shouldn't be extensively more, but 0.06 cents per dollar in value will go up, or 0.06% per dollar, whatever. Because if you're not getting if the homes are valuing at 30% more, but you're taking 26% off of the tax rate that it's coming out, there's going to be a little bit of wiggle room there.
Right.
And so Nick's argument was, if my house goes from $100,000 to $130,000, am I going to pay more next year, even with this rate change that they're talking about? To which Danny Whitehead, who's the current assessor's office, was in the audience and did the math and was like, yeah, you're going to pay a little more. But he was being called a liar for it. I don't know. I wasn't there. This is just Nick's version of the story as I hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to talk to Lauren about that. Matt Shears told me Lauren was the one to talk taxes with. She understands the way city taxes work.
Okay.
And so I find it interesting.
It's always fun to learn something new.
I mean,
it's like, how does all this shit work?
That's the point. Is because who? Okay, so in the political sphere of conversation, who gets to take credit for what's happening right now?
What's happening
with this chart of falling tax rates that we are looking at? Who gets to take credit for that?
It's people that have been on the incumbents, basically, or previous
city council.
Yeah,
they're not doing it. The state makes them do it. It's not their choice.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, though. But like the city councilors are taking credit for it, or at least acting like they did something. But it's a law from the state that obligates them to do it. So,
but does the state set the rate?
The state doesn't set the rate. The state sets the rule that if your house goes up in value, you don't have to pay more. Your percentage has to drop to meet it.
Okay.
As my understanding of the state law, which I haven't read the full state law on it, but that's.
So I'm assuming they're taking credit for keeping it low or having it dropped.
I mean, but essentially they're taking credit for not raising it. I guess it's just weird.
It's more just trying to point out that kind of like fear mongering of they're going to raise your taxes. They're going to raise your taxes. It's like, well, we've been predominantly Democratic in the city for however many years,
and we haven't raised your taxes.
All right,
yet. Aha, get it?
Aha.
Maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's the. I suppose. Got invited to a what was it? ACLU event.
Yeah,
really weirded out about it.
We did one once at a bookstore years ago, back in high school.
I gotta figure out how to go. It's the first day of school. It's gonna be a weird day to try to do something like that, but I'm going to try to take part. It's on. I mean, it got me thinking because it's on. It's talking about KPD's use of surveillance,
right?
For whatever, and so after talking to Roberto this week, and we're talking about budgets and, one of the big topics going on in politics is policing and what are we doing to do this, that, and the other with the policing situation. And it's like, well, he gave the numbers. It's like 430. I think they're budgeted for 415. They've had just under 400 for the last couple of years. They've got 20 something that are retiring this year, 30 something that will be eligible to retire this year, and then only like 22 that are going to be coming out of the academy this year. And so, even if the eligible to retire doesn't leave, we're still -4 without, And so he's talking about retention and recruitment and all this different stuff, And then there's always budget parts of the conversation, because one of the retention items is going to be a better salary, better benefits for the job or whatever.
There's a lot of push in a lot of like state line cities, kind of trying to get cops from other surrounding cities and other states. Like, hey, our taxes are lower here, and trying to encourage. Trying to recruit from other departments, basically.
And I don't know the facts on it. Roberto brought up the idea that apparently the Academy KPD uses, it does a lot of stuff. Since we're a decent-sized municipality, the training program and stuff like that is more extensive than other places, and so a lot of guys will come out of our academy and work a couple of years and then get picked up by other municipalities because the training's there. And the capabilities there to work in a Chattanooga. I don't know. He didn't say where's, but like a Chattanooga or something like that.
Smaller city.
And Chattanooga's paying more. Or it's less work in a smaller city like Johnson City or something like that.
Saying, I went to Harvard. You went to the Knoxville Police Department? Oh.
Whoa. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He didn't.
Golly.
The way he said it implied more that they were going to bigger cities.
Oh, okay.
Because they had bigger budgets and would pay more. But wanted to use our smaller cities' pretty good training program to take it. But my point getting at all that, though, is that we've talked, like, money's always a talk, salary's already a talk, how much are we paying these guys? And so this ACLU thing's happened, and I'm like, well, how much do we spend on surveillance? How much are these different programs, whether it's, because I know KPD has license plate readers in all of their cruisers. So that if you're driving down the road and a KPD's car behind you, they're reading your license plate and then running your plates.
Right.
The whole body cam thing's another new one, but I don't know if that counts under surveillance or that's more of a liability insurance or anything else. But there's drone usage, which they've asked for more of from Massey, and Massey obliged. I don't know how much I don't know how much they spend on surveillance in Knox County or the city of Knoxville. The KPD spends on surveillance units. It's like, well, if you got the money in the budget for that, but you can't keep cops on because you can't pay a salary that's comparable, wouldn't that be a good place to start? Or are we going to agree that there's a need for drone surveillance over protests? Or
I don't know about the cost benefit analysis of it.
I don't know it either. That's what I'm curious.
You don't
about.
have to pay a drone overtime.
Yeah. You got to have an operator, and it's like, well,
that's true.
And then you have to at some point you have to review the footage, or and that takes man hours to do. So I don't know. It's a thought I had on that conversation. I'm curious to get a little bit more information on that. So I am going to try to figure it out. I've got a phone call scheduled next week where we're to kind of discuss what's going on. I don't know. She told me she didn't want to record it, so I was like, okay. Because that was my question. I was like, yes, and can I record it? She's like, well, you can record the thing, but at least for this first conversation, I'd rather keep it off the record so we can, kind of get a feel of what we're talking about here. It's like, okay, whatever. So, I don't know. It's kind of neat. It's fun. Miss Owens emailed me again today to correct us on our last episode. I can do it off here. So
what did we mess up?
I don't remember. Where is she at? Jennifer Owen says, listening to episode 119, Sunshine Law, you could absolutely have multiple commissioners on whenever you want together. They would have to be with public notice within whatever the amount of time that the county or the city council requires. And if many media showed up, I might have to let them observe. Guests might also have to declare that it happened in a public meeting, but it could happen for sure. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jennifer Owen. I think on that episode I referenced her for correcting us on something else in the episode before. So our reoccurring
She's on a roll.
Our reoccurring corrections assistant, Jennifer Owen, everybody.
Oh, we're on a roll of fucking up.
Well, I'm pretty sure we've been pretty clear about being idiots, so
Yeah,
I'm happy to continue.
Pretty good acknowledging. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Is this how what?
Well, what's funny about it is that, like, as I'm learning actual things, and there are some things that I actually know now, and it's like, well, shit, how do I assert my knowledge here when I've been consistently saying, don't listen to me for real because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Got to preface it.
Yeah. This one's real. I actually know this one.
I actually found this out for a fact.
But that tax thing's a fact. That ACLU thing's a fact. But yeah, Nick and Andrew finally got Roberto. It had to be a phone one. It wasn't my favorite, but it worked. I thought Roberto was a little bit interesting because he made a point to say how open and accessible he is. After 3 months of trying to get him on the show, I finally got him on the show in a weird format because we couldn't do it in my normal format because the timing he had available for me.
Right.
So it's like, but you're accessible.
At times.
Well, maybe, I don't know. And maybe for his constituents, he's more accessible than for me, who's not a constituent.
Right.
And I kind of am. I have business in his district, but
I guess this is prime politicking time.
yeah. Well, it was Tommy's deal. Tommy said, I have no time. I'm going door knocking every day until the 31st, the primary day. If you want to come door knocking with me, we can do a show that way. And so I'm going to try the remote setup that I bought the parts and pieces for. And we'll see what it does. I'm going to have my laptop in a backpack.
What if any of them will come knock on my doors?
Maybe we'll be. I mean, that's his district for sure. I don't know. Actually, somebody said something. Maybe it was Matt said something to me. Somebody said something to me about District 1. It is seems to be the most contested between Hayes and Smith. That Murphy doesn't really have as much at least visible action going on in your neighborhood, not your personal neighborhood, but in District 1 than Tommy and David do.
Definitely see more of their signs.
I mean, have you seen any of her signs?
I don't think so. But I pretty much stay on the main roads and don't venture around that much.
I mean, I would think that's where you put the signs. I mean, anybody will let you on the big roads because everybody. I mean, if you live in South Knoxville and don't work in South Knoxville, you're on Chapman Highway.
Yeah, but I think even that you've got to get the business's permission.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always everybody's got a corner.
Yeah.
There's always a corner or some intersection somewhere that
True.
nobody pays attention to.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. What else do we got? What else do we go? Oh, the vaccination thing. All right. While we're still on the city council, and the candidates thing, let me pull up the link so I can correctly assess this thing. So knoxtntoday.com.
That's the first I've heard of this.
Yeah, it is some sort of news publication here in Knoxville.
I got some pretty big sponsors. There were pretty big advertisers that want to advertise on it.
Oh, there's an update. Roberto. Okay, yeah. First time I read it, Roberto had responded. So there's an update on it. Anyway, early voting starts in 3 weeks, August 11th to 26th. You know that if you listen to us. 5 of the 6 standard district seats are on the election. They polled candidates on 3 issues, hoping for a one-word answer, but taking what we got. So this article is only question 1. Are you fully vaccinated for COVID-19? Okay, so there's some issues here for me. Because this is a very politicized question on an issue that we all agree probably shouldn't be as political as it is. But this is first and foremost repoliticizing the issue of the vaccination. I don't know how else to interpret it than that, because as we were talking about pre-show, is you go down the list here, and unless there's any other updates that I didn't mention, you go down the list here, all of the, quote, Democrats, and incumbents for that matter, answer yes. All of the, quote, Republicans say none of your business, and then the 3 city council movement candidates did not answer. And so I've been in a couple of arguments on Facebook about this one, about, are we down? Is this now so much part of politics that we're okay with asking individual people who happen to be running for office medical questions? Is that our business as a constituency? Now, I think it was Meg McMuffin said, we can ask them whatever we want. And I was like, you're right. I agree with that. We can't ask them whatever we want. But do we encourage that? Is this what we want? Like, do we want it to become the norm where I'm allowed to be like, hey, you're running for city council? How was your last, prostate exam? It's none of my fucking business. Are you up to date on all your vaccines?
I see the point of your example, but that's
right.
extreme.
It's example absurdum. It's the most ridiculous version I could think of. Asking, but it's not at the same time because
we ask them what their faith is.
I don't think that's necessarily. I haven't heard that on these guys, but I mean, you're not wrong in general. That is a thing, especially in like presidential elections. But I mean, like could I ask any of the female candidates if they've had abortions? Because that's a really fucking political issue.
Do you have is that a question?
I'm just saying, would it be, is there a planet where that would be an appropriate question in, hey, you're a candidate running for office. Have you had an abortion? Is there a planet where that's an appropriate question? No. If abortion is an issue that's on the table that needs to be talked about, it's not whether or not you've had an abortion. It's what are your feelings on abortion? Is abortion something is this a woman's choice issue or is this a right to life issue? That's how you ask the question. Yeah. So I guess my point is this is an asshole question to start with from NoxTN today.
So I was wondering if this is the first one because they mentioned asking another question but don't actually go into it.
Yeah, it's. I'm assuming it is. I don't know.
So I don't know if this is a multi-part story.
No,
some people
I
are
don't
like
know.
that's a HIPAA violation, and it's not a HIPAA violation at all.
It isn't if you answer it, but again, the problem is that
it's not if you answer it. Like HIPAA has to do with you getting information from a healthcare provider, or a healthcare provider providing information.
You're right.
That's actually HIPAA violation.
But you're not obligated to answer it in any.
Correct. Yeah. That's exactly the point.
But the problem with that too is that the refusal to answer is an answer, and not just the answer of, hey, I don't think it's any of your business. For 9 out of 10 people, they hear no when you say that's none of your business. No, I haven't got the vaccine.
Well, then they don't know how to play the politics game and know how to dance around a question.
No, I mean, Kim Smith did a very good job of dancing. I think the vaccine is a personal choice, and I do not want to influence anyone who is for or against getting the vaccine. It's a private choice between you and your doctor.
Right.
That is a properly. But anybody who reads this, and I know this maybe not everybody, but I know for a fact a number of people I've been arguing with about this on Facebook right now. They take Kim Smith's answer as no, I have not been vaccinated. And since Kim Smith says no, I've not been vaccinated, she's a vaccine denier. She's one of these fucking crazy people. She thinks public health isn't a problem.
I don't think it jumps to that far now.
I think it does. I absolutely think it does. You don't play on Facebook as much as I do. And I know these crazy people because I engage with these crazy people and I have a good time. Right. Don't feel bad.
You engage with a small fraction of people that are loud on Facebook,
right? And
does not represent a general whole whatsoever.
That is not untrue. But in my small group on Facebook in Knoxville politics are the most loud, the most active people in politics in Knoxville. So I don't know.
I see your point.
No, they are not. They're not likely the mass, but they are the people that are going out. They're volunteers for other candidates that are going door to door. They're going to knock on somebody's door because whatever. They're going door knocking with me and Tommy on the next week, and they're going to be like, "Hey, do you know the other person is a vaccine denier?" It's not a fact, but they're going to reference this article and say this other person doesn't have the vaccine. Is not getting the vaccine.
Think they would?
I think they would. There's plenty. I've heard plenty in here. On plenty of the interviews I've had. The other candidate is XYZ's. Just because we're little tiny Knoxville doesn't mean we're above the other's an asshole argument.
So the finger pointing's already started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and it's the nice finger pointing too. I don't think they're a bad person. I just think they suck at their job. Those kind of quotes. which again, that's the nicest way to
I assume like door to door, you're just talking about yourself.
I don't know. I'll find out, I guess. But to me, I have a hard time believing not. Somebody commented on the Garrett Holt, or not the Garrett Holt, the Clemaris episode. Was
Especially people that don't know the names in the game, you want to instill your name in it, where you embed your name in their head.
But it's still going to be it'll be the version of
They say so?
Tommy's vaccinated and he's happy, he's proud to admit it. Fine, they'll say it that way, but it's still the same inference. They're inferring that the other person is anti-vax or something like that. Which is, again, if you're going to get the brass tacks of it, if the argument is that if you're not getting the vaccine, and I apologize, I forgot your name, whomever that I was arguing with, have made a valid point that as a public official, they're going to be in the city-county building, they're going to be in enclosed spaces with masses, their requirement of the job of being a city councilor is interaction and contact, and for them to be a vector is problematic. And it's like, okay, I get that a little bit. I understand the reasoning of that one more than most arguments that I've heard otherwise. But it's like, okay, but nobody said no. There's not a single person on the list that said no. There's just people that didn't answer. But I'm going to form my opinion on this person as a political candidate based on their response to this questionnaire. So shame on Knox 10. What is it? Knox10today.com. Shame on you for asking a shitty question. You could have had this. You could have had a real political question, and it says, "Do you believe do you believe the vaccine is important for battling COVID-19? Do you could have gotten the really crazy extreme one and be like, do you think that there should be vaccine mandates in Knox County or the city of Knoxville? That is a political question. Are you personally vaccinated is not a political question.
Right.
But it is very politically leaning, and it's.
It got finger clicks.
I guess.
Got the clicks.
I mean, I've clicked on it like 5 times. So, Knox 10 today. I'm not spending money at any of the places that you have on here, so never mind. You're not doing any good off of me. I mean, hell, they've got an ad for the COVID-19 vaccine in their banner.
I didn't understand that it jumps to talking about Jefferson and Adams.
Yeah, it's a weird article.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This just came out of left field.
It says next up, the next question on the question list is, should the city of Knoxville contribute cash towards the construction of a downtown baseball stadium?
It's like cash, they just write $2 signs. Like, what is this thing?
I mean, maybe it's a 15-year-old. I don't know. And then all of a sudden we're talking about Adams and Jefferson. I don't know what that's about. Yeah. But, yeah. Sandra Clark is the editor and CEO of Knox 10 today. Yeah, when I go down, I mean, I know half these people in this in the 4 comments that are on the article. I'm friends with half these people because they're people that are voluntarily or very active in the political circles on Facebook. So, I don't know. Again, I do feel like there is a valid question in how a candidate feels about the vaccine and whether it's important and whether people should get it if they want to get it. I think that's a valid question. But you as an individual being vaccinated is none of our fucking business. And it's only political, and I think it's rude, and it bothers me. But it's in their opinion column, so I guess it doesn't matter.
That's true.
But again, and then the other thing I wanted to mention on that I think is very interesting about it is that the 3 CCM candidates did not respond, period. I guess the better way to say it is I find it interesting how, other than Garrett Holt just said, yeah, he got it. But it is very, for a nonpartisan race, it is as partisan as, it is almost perfectly partisan on the way that questionnaire broke down. Again, because I think it was an asshole way to write it. I think if you would have wrote it as, do you think COVID-19 vaccine is important? Then I think it would have been all yeses, and there would have been nothing to talk about, and that's why you don't ask it that way, I guess.
It's possible, yeah.
Dick move, Knox 10 today. You suck. I think I'm going for our brand to be fuck you, the rest of anybody else that tries to, I don't know.
Let's burn some bridges.
I don't know. I mean, they have their format. If that's what if they want to be, if you're a small company trying to do news and your goal is to be like the big companies, then that's what you do. But the only reason you have any room to work is because the big companies are falling apart because they can't do it anymore.
Did you try to find that article yet on your computer?
No, I haven't. I don't sit
Just
down here
curious.
except when we're doing podcasts.
That's true.
I don't know what's in here. It's the good news one. Yeah, well, let's talk about something good news.
I want to say they gave like 4 or 5 examples of places in the U.S. that were kind of trying to figure out, I guess, the future of the news sources, which we've talked about on here. You know, a lot of it gets down to funding, basically, which is why a lot of smaller newspapers are folding under. So they just don't have the ad revenue to keep afloat.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool. There was, I think it was some Midwestern town that, I don't know if it was funds or if monies were solicited or whatever, but they kind of equated it to the city asking for donors for your local theater or local opera or whatever play group. And they were actually raising like local money.
It knows me.
That's cray. You said you never go on there.
Not on here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's through my. I mean, it might be through my Apple account that it's got it linked together.
Yeah.
But
it was cool. It's actually, you've actually got a locally funded, newspaper where you're actually able to get, people actually caring about, what's going on locally. They're having to literally pay for it, but,
I mean, that's what Compass is when, there's, they only have like 1,500, less than 1% of the total population of the city of Knoxville, less than 0.5% of the total population of Knox County. But I mean, they're making it work with them, and I mean, they're solid. I see some stuff from time to time where I'm like, ugh. I think the weird one to me is that, like, I think Jesse's very active on Facebook as an individual, and I have to catch myself from Jesse the writer versus Jesse the person. Mm-hmm. Because Jesse the person talks about a lot of stuff that Jesse the writer talks about too, and so it's kind of like, sometimes I don't know. I'll take a little bit of blame, saying sometimes I conflate the two, but
it's hard to take yourself out of a story. I mean, you're gonna inadvertently throw in your opinions or your feelings on a certain subject. I mean, there was a reason you may have picked that certain subject to even write on.
Yeah. Bedford Forest is out in Nashville.
Did you hear that? The bust?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's kind of dumb. I mean, it's dumb all over. But this is like one of 10,000 other things that's not... It's not that big a fucking deal. Of all the controversy and fucking shit stirring that went on over this thing, as opposed to, I don't know, anything that has actual real fucking value in the world. That's my only thing on it. I'm glad it's gone. Don't get me wrong. I think it should be gone. I think it should have been gone years ago. But, I mean, shame on both sides, but shame on whoever was trying really hard to keep it there. It should have been kind of a like, you're serious about this? Yeah. All right, fine. And then move the fuck on. We got better stuff to do than fight over this fucking thing.
Someone was watching the other day and realized I knew Georgia used to have the stars and bars on their state flag, and they changed it maybe 10, 15 years ago or so. I always assumed it was there like from the earlier days, but the actual Confederate battle flag didn't get added to their state flag until like the late 50s, late 50s.
Full on civil rights fuck you movement.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's where, the Bedford Forest went in there in like 72 or something like that.
Right. That's what they talk about a lot of Confederate statues. They're like, some of them that were true like memorials too, because in many wars you just kind of had mass graves.
Right.
And all these towns that lost their, fathers and family members, there was nothing to really memorialize them. So there were some that were put in the late 1800s, but
most
there's a large spike in the 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s.
Right. 50s and 60s particularly.
Yeah.
There was one, I can't remember the story, but there was one that they built right out in front of some school that was forced integrated. And it was a...
There's definitely a number of those stories where they were put in particular places, like very public spaces. And it's like, hey,
so
we'll let you know who we remember and who we're memorializing.
So the Cleveland Indians are now the Guardians.
Yep, Cleveland Guardians.
But we still have the
Apparently
West Rebels.
There's something on... I read some little blurb, I guess, on one of their bridges. Maybe they've got some kind of Guardians. So it's like an homage to something.
I've never heard of it before as far as having any value to the city of Cleveland, but if it I hope that would be nice. Like if like like Guardian Steel or whatever was an old business there that'd been there for decades or something like that, and this is Guardian Town. Or
I got the
something
impression
like that.
there was like two, maybe like statues on a bridge or something that were like the guardians of the city or something.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway,
I don't know.
Yeah, some sort of.
They usually try to put, have some kind of backstory and a meaning to
right, like
why
one.
Yeah.
Come on, tell us how you feel about it.
So stupid.
I don't know. Soccer's weird like that, though. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know.
It used to be or I think they still are the Columbus Crew.
But I mean, like, in your European leagues, like, what's Barcelona? Like, they don't talk like that in soccer. Like if you're talking football, if we're talking NFL football, and we're
Barcelona
doing
FC.
Right, but if you're talking American football, you say the Bears, the Packers, the Giants. Everybody knows who you're talking about. But they don't do that in soccer. It's always
There's some teams that have kind of like mascots.
it's like,
Like
you
the
have
West
Man
Ham,
U,
they
Man
have
City.
the Hammers.
Right.
They have kind of like nicknames, I guess.
Right. What's it? Crystal Palace or like Swans or something like that.
There's a team called Swansea.
Or then Swansea, yeah.
Swansea, yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. As much as I enjoy the sport, I really suck at following the professional sides. But like Madrid and Barcelona and AC Milan, that's all you say. There's no it's not. They don't group it that way. So one Knoxville. I think I don't disagree. I get it.
The national teams kind of have nicknames. Like Italy is Lazure. It's like the Blues, basically. And Holland is
Naranjo.
the orange, yeah, the oranges, basically, because that's their main color.
Yeah.
America's just America.
It's fucking America, bro. Been watching some Olympics. You watch the Olympics today?
No, but apparently the women's soccer team has lost like their first two matches.
No, they won the second one, I think.
No, they lost.
I know they donked the first one off to somebody they shouldn't have.
Yeah, they lost the second one too to Sweden. I want to say 2-0.
Huh.
So I think I saw some little thing. I forget what kind of stage they were calling it. It wasn't a group stage, but
Pod.
possibly.
So in other sporting news, that's random and whatever. Texas and Oklahoma are likely to enter the SEC, like soon.
Are they really doing a big reshuffling?
I don't think it's a big reshuffling. I think the Big 12 sucks and everybody knows it, and anybody that's any good in the Big 12 needs to get out so they can actually have a chance at being relevant nationally. Football.
I was about to say, you're on an international site when they're calling soccer football.
Yeah, but I was assuming they would have like scores. Go to the other place.
Okay, go Olympics.com. I think I was just reading an article that the opening games was like the least watched opening games in like 33 years.
I mean, it's got a timing issue to start with.
True.
I mean, it's literally.
I thought some of it was kind of interesting, like the circles you were just looking at to pick the sports. They actually had people that were mimicking those same kind of kind of stick figures almost, doing the different sports. Thought that was kind of neat.
Nice. That's an all-Asian Olympics so far. And the medal tracker, China, Korea, and Japan.
I think skateboarding and surfing's in this one.
Yeah, I was watching some skateboarding earlier tonight. Jesus Christ, where are the fucking results? Thank you. Jeez Louise. Gymnastics.
The uneven bars.
Beam, fucking Jesus.
Yeah, there's a lot of sports.
There's got to be a better way to track this shit.
A lot of shit that goes on every day.
All right, here we go. Do we call it soccer? They call it football. Soccer.
Did see some a little bit of women's 3-on-3 basketball. It's like half court 3-on-3 basketball.
Yeah, I heard that was the thing.
I think it was France and U.S. I don't know if it was like 1 to 20. It was a really short game, and I'm like, oh, that's it? It's over? I think it was actually timed, but it was very short. I'm like, oh, that's the end of it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, women's national team's 1-1.
Huh. Thought they lost the other day. Did they come back?
I saw something that they lost their appeal on their fair pay.
Or maybe it was Sweden they lost to first. I don't know.
Maybe they lost some appeal on their fair pay lawsuit.
Didn't they? I thought I saw something that
I didn't read into it.
that they won some.
I don't know. I mean, that one. This is one to get me in trouble. I don't. You know, I think if there was professional, like a sport that gets watched, should get paid by how many people watch it. It's not that there's a male version and a female version, and they should get paid the same. If we're talking about soccer, more people watch men's soccer. Men's players should get paid more. It's a
part of that's
it's a performance.
How much it
product.
gets promoted as well.
Yeah, but
promotion usually leads to higher viewership.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, is there a professional women's?
When you're putting, is there a women's professional league? Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming there was, but you know, with the.
I mean, even International Olympic, when you're putting it on, ESPN Ocho, not that many people are going to be watching it.
I mean, that's fair. I don't disagree, but I mean, it's like, but I don't know. That's a calculate, but that I don't know. We'd have to have somebody that does programming.
Just throwing in caveats.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, but I would assume that if you're NBC in this case, because it's the Olympics, that you are prime timing the most watchable stuff because your primetime ads are
it's what you can then pull
most
in.
Expensive. It's what you're going to pull the most people in to watch.
Right.
And so
pull the most sponsors to then pay for those.
Right. As soon as women's gymnastics starts, from 8 to 11, all week that week is going to be all women's gymnastics.
Damn.
I would assume because, like the Simone Biles and the whole sexual assault doctor thing that's been going on forever and all the kind of shit that's going on with it, it is for, I'd say it's probably, as far as Olympic sports goes, I'd say girls gymnastics is probably the most popular sport in the Olympics, in the Summer Olympics in America. Probably because we're perverts, because it's mostly underage girls in very little clothes.
Sure.
Which I think's, unfortunate.
Yeah, I thought they had mentioned, I thought they had an article about, I think it was like beach volleyball or something with their outfits. There were some teams that were like, no, like, we're not going to wear that. Like, no, you got to wear a bikini. Like, no, we don't.
I'm curious, like, I'd be interesting to somebody that's in and knows it better. I'd be curious what rules are in place. Like,
well, I don't know if you heard there was some big stink. I don't know if it was an American or some other country's swimmer. It was a female swimmer that I guess she has dreadlocks or I guess natural like African American hair. It was some kind of cap that got designed, I guess, for more natural hair, but it wasn't allowed by the Olympic Committee. It doesn't give them any kind of advantage, but I guess it just wasn't in their rule book as far as approved.
Right. And if it's not in,
an
it's
approved
out.
Outfit, right?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's unfortunate.
Right. I think it was kind of like one of those kind of like cracks in the rule book.
Right. I think that's unfortunate, but it doesn't mean it's a racist.
It's not making her any faster.
Like
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, again, like, because I remember I was watching last Olympics and I was beach volleyball because it's fun to watch. And it was there was a Middle Eastern team playing, and they had long sleeves on.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, I'm curious what the rules are, because I've heard some talk about the short shorts and shit like that in volleyball and stuff like that, and why it's a big deal and this, that, and the other. And it's like, if it's a rule, then it's a problem. Like, if you have to wear a fucking thong to play Olympic volleyball, that's a problem.
Right.
Because some people might not be comfortable in that. I'm guessing, for the most part, they are.
Get some sand at some sensitive places.
Right. But I'm guessing for the most part, generically speaking, they are comfortable with that.
Right.
Most of the players are. But some might not be, and it shouldn't be a rule that they have to. I don't know. I'd be curious to know if it's a rule, because there was some other sport they were talking about. And then I saw one headline, there was like a German or something like that, girl gymnast that had like a unitard that was like ankle to wrist, like fully covered. Like there was no skin showing except her hands and her feet.
Yeah.
And, she would she wore that to bring attention to the objectification of young girls in gymnastics. And it's like, yeah, duh.
You're still wearing a form-fitting outfit.
Right. But it's also, I mean, I don't know. I always thought gymnastics was weird. Like, just as the like as a spectator sport. It's like
It's fun to watch a few of the sports when they're doing like the men's rings.
the vault, the ladies' vault is badass.
Yeah, the vault's kind of fun to watch. It's like they're running like full speed, like thump.
Yeah, I mean it's
Just gonna
crazy.
propel myself off this big ass thing.
I'm gonna do a
this
cartwheel.
saddle horse or whatever.
Right, I'm gonna cartwheel into a horse, a wooden horse, and I'm gonna.
The men's
rocket
pommel horse
myself
was always
off
kind of
the-
a weird thing for me to watch. I'm like, ow, ow, ow.
They know what they're doing. I mean, that's the point. The point is to show off the specific set of athleticism that
Right.
it is, and I get that, but I don't know. I like the reality is that this is the world we live in, and I hate it. I hate that I can't just fucking watch sport. It's not an option. You can't just watch sport anymore. There's always politics. Have we talked about on here the Preds player?
I don't think we talked about it on here.
We should probably look up his name to be appropriate, but some prospect that is the Preds player. This is pre-draft for anybody that's a hockey fan. He is a property of the Nashville Predators. He's in one of their minor league teams right now.
I think Glass might be his last name.
Who came out a couple weeks ago. I mean, he's the first openly gay minor league NHL player. I guess I don't know how to word that part of it, but assuming that he is as good as that he's supposed to be, that he will make it up. It's just he's getting his, he's paying his dues or whatever in the minor leagues, like most guys do when they first get in the league. They could take a season or whatever. There's not many guys that come in.
Well, no, this is pre-draft. I think he'd been drafted to the NHL like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but
I think it was just through a trade.
Okay. Anyway, that's what I was saying. It's pre-draft. I'm just saying, but he's been a property of the Predators for a while.
Yeah, I think we just traded for him.
He's been an NHL player for a while. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is, when I don't care. I just don't care. I think it's good. I think it's great. I think it's the first, and then hopefully we'll get the handful more, and then it's not a conversation anymore. I don't care about the sexuality of Pecorine. I don't care who he fucks when he goes home after games. I care whether he's a good goalie or not.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that this is the first, and we get a handful more that they make a big deal out of, and then it goes away. Not because I don't want to hear about it. Well, yes, because I don't want to hear about it, but not because I'm appalled by it, but because it's not part of why I watch hockey. I don't care about that part of their lives. They are, as terrible as I can figure out how to explain what is my enjoyment for sport. I enjoy watching people out there hurting each other and playing the sport. It is for my entertainment. Fuck UAC, we're not going into that part of it, but it's for my joy and whatever you want to call it that I watch for. It's not for your personal life. That's the same reason I don't like watching the Olympics too, not just the politics part, but you sit down for a 3-hour section of Olympics coverage, and it's like 25 minutes of sport, and it's the story of this, and it's the story of this guy, and it's the story of this athlete that had this thing going on. Like there was a big one this afternoon that I was watching, and like he is Sports Illustrated swimming writer. Like he follows all like national championships, college swimming, any world championship swimming competitions and stuff like this. This is the guy for Sports Illustrated. His daughter made the Olympic team this year, and so it's whoever the journalist is for NBC talking to him about what it's like to be a journalist and have your kid there, and you're supposed to try to be impartial when you're writing the story. How are you going to do all this? Blah 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 blah. And it's like that's a great story. I don't fucking care. Can we go to the sports now, please? That's all I want.
They got to have some filler in there, some heartfelt moments.
They don't, though. No, they really don't. It's all pre-recorded anyway at this point because it all happened yesterday to me and you. Like right now, it's 10 a.m. there, 9 a.m. there. So there might be some stuff happening right now that we could catch live, but for the most part, it's all pre-recorded. There was a bike race today, which was a 6-hour bike race that they showed 45 minutes of coverage of.
Saw some rowing earlier.
There's rowing. There's a couple different rowing events they showed. There's some men's gymnastics they were showing a little bit ago. There's some skateboarding that I saw on. There is more than 24 hours of content in a 24-hour period that they could be showing sports every single second of every single day. But we're telling fucking stories about players and athletes, and it's like that's not what I want. But the reality
It's not
is
what you want, but that's
what sells, and you're right.
That's
the
some
reality.
people want to see. They kind of want to see the story behind the story.
I know. I want to see athletes doing what athletes do. That's what I want.
Well, maybe they do the same thing for other like major. I want to say like the NHL Classic. They kind of do like behind the scenes of making the ice and
Yeah, but they don't pause the game so they can have a longer fucking story about the Zamboni driver from the local ice rink came down to help build this thing. They do it during the intermission. They do it during on a bumper while there's a TV, while there's a timeout.
Or the beginning, yeah.
All right. But I mean, you're not wrong. They stretch out. They stretch out what is, realistically a hockey game with intermission should be an hour and 45 minutes or so, and they stretch it out into a 3-hour broadcast every fucking time. Which probably has. I bet you that you could do a study on DUIs and alcoholism related to the length of sporting events.
Huh.
For people going to places like people go down to the bar and watch like NFL, watch pro games on the NFL ticket or whatever because their team doesn't show here. I'm at the bar, spending here 3 hours here, just blah, 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 drinking, watching my game. Now I have to drive home.
They should make games shorter. We'll decrease DUIs.
Maybe they shouldn't. No, not make games shorter. Just make coverage shorter.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of the things NFL's pissing me off with is they've slowed that game down.
That's why MLB just implemented some ruling to try to speed up their games.
They needed to. There's a pitch. They put a pitch clock on. I heard there was a pitch clock.
There's like a pitch clock and how many like warm up pitches. I guess if you swap out pitchers, but it's pretty much all about the pitching, like in between innings and whatnot.
Yeah, they take for fuck ever. I mean, they just do. But I don't know. Baseball holds a small exception for me. I don't like watching it on TV, but going to games, there's just something about going to baseball games. It's slow and lazy, and then it's exciting, and then it's slow and lazy, and then it's exciting. There's something about that.
The Bucks just won the championship.
The who? Oh, my Milwaukee Bucks.
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Yay! I mean, Milwaukee
there
needs
was some
to win.
like viral video of the MVP went to McDonald's I think went to some place that had chicken nuggets and ordered like 50. He's like, I don't want 51. Don't want 49. He's like, I want 50 because I guess that was the amount of points he scored in the final game or something.
Oh, nice.
So he was ordering like 50 nuggets or 50 chicken tenders.
That's funny. Yeah, it's basketball. That's just one sport I don't care about.
I mean, I can watch it. Yeah,
I'm a Wisconsin.
I don't care.
I'm a Wisconsin sports fan in general, and my Bucks.
I want to say they came back. I think they started out 2 down, which isn't uncommon because I think it started out with at the other teams.
Yeah.
Was it Milwaukee and somebody else?
They do San Antonio, maybe. I don't know. See, it's basketball. There you go. NBA. They're talking about off-season moves, prospects. I forgot I was still on ESPN's website while we were doing this. Phoenix.
Yeah.
Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I think the Bucks lost the first games, and then
they won in 6 games. So I think the NBA does like hockey does with the 2-2-2-1.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot better than the 2-3-2. Because then it's like always. It's always game 6. Like game 6, I think mathematically game 6 in any 7-game series is the most often clinching game. And so in a 2-3-2 series, it's almost always the road team that wins. Because I think
you kind of lose the home field advantage or whatever.
Somebody dorkier than me would have to do the
stats on it.
The stats on it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it ends up. But
gotcha. Did learn something I didn't really know the other day. Watching some Neil deGrasse Tyson clip.
Mm-hmm.
You know the actual color of the sun?
White.
You are correct.
I was guessing it just wasn't yellow or orange.
Yeah, it's true. It is white. He made a good example. He's like, you got sunlight and the snow. It's like, it's white. If you were in a room and had a light bulb that had a blue filter and you're looking at a white piece of paper, that shows up as kind of like a light blue. Or put a red bulb, it shows up as light red. But, when it snows, snow is white.
Right. So it would be... what is it, the atmosphere that...
Pretty much, yeah. The light kind of reflecting through our atmosphere.
Oh, we're in a burn ban.
That's why it gets... I heard about that the other day. Because all the haze and fog is from wildfires in the west right now.
Yeah. California's on fire again.
Like, I thought maybe there was a wildfire here in like East Tennessee, and I was like, no, it's all from the west.
Yeah. I found a random link on Facebook earlier.
They said it was like no open burning.
Yeah. It's air quality.
I guess if you wanted to fire up the fireplace, they're like, have at it.
Yeah. But it was an air quality burn ban, not a fire hazard burn ban. So they have one where it's like, it's been dry, hasn't rained in forever. You might catch the neighborhood on fire. No burn today.
Right.
Where this one is it's smoky and hazy. We don't need any extra smoke or haze in.
Please don't go out coal rolling.
And we're kind of I've had my issues with Rural Metro and shit. And so we got to burn a fire ring now. Like an actual pot, whatever, giant pot thing that we burn in now, which I don't think we need a permit for. You only need a permit for the open burning. But with the burn ban on, are we allowed to burn in our fire ring?
I don't know if we consider it open if you keep the lid on.
I don't know. Our lid's fucked up, but
I would assume closed is inside in a fireplace, possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. We have some stuff we were going to burn and did not. So we're holding on to it.
There's some people out in the boonies that I got family that still does it. And they've got their burn barrel outside that they burn whatever trash they have in the house that's burnable.
Yeah.
And they go outside and burn that.
Yep. Which under Knox County rules you can't do even with a burn permit. You can't burn. You're not supposed to burn paper or even lumber. It has to be raw wood. Like it can't be. I think they have it under like building supplies or something like that. You can't burn building supplies. So
a lot of that shit's treated with chemicals and whatnot as well.
Yeah.
So they got to know like the pallets and stuff. They say don't burn that because they're super treated with chemicals and stuff. Yeah.
Because I know that you have that like somewhere in it's like Iceland or something. They have that fucking annual super it's like the world record for the
Burning Man.
No, it's in it's some Scandinavian craziness. Like it's this small island out in the middle of the bay. And they go out and it's like a 70-foot, 80-foot tower they build out of shit and burn that motherfucker. Huh. It's like the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest bonfire, like year in and year out. It's a big deal. I can't remember. Like there's some, what's it called? It's some old local legend kind of tradition thing.
Because they're into like the trolls and whatnot. As far as their kind of like urban legends.
Yeah, Norway. Alsund Midsummer Bonfire. Like good shit. For you guys at home.
That's pretty fucking big.
Yeah. But it's all pallets and shit. Like it's just pallets. They just collect pallets and stack them.
Yeah.
They don't just stack them. They engineered this motherfucker. It's not just a thing, but yeah, it's the world's largest bonfire, and it's their midsummer, whatever, the Alsund midsummer bonfire. But it's this little island out in the middle of the bay or whatever, so it's not really a fire hazard because it's all water.
It's gonna catch on fire. The rocks don't burn.
It's not the Pacific. The Pacific catches on fire, but it's a separate story. Another billionaire made it into sort of space this week.
Yeah. When's Elon going up?
And in the post conference, I don't know if you heard it. He thanked Amazon customers and employees for making this happen.
Did see that? Yeah.
I know you think this sounds good, but it doesn't.
Apparently, there was a soundbite. I guess he took Skittles up there with him, or I think it was Skittles. He's asking anybody if they wanted. Anybody want a Skittle? Like, what? You took Skittles with you?
That's just fucking weird.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. He's like, yeah, I want to thank all the customers, employees, because you helped pay for this. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks, jackass.
I don't know. I guess kudos for being honest about it. I don't know. Like, the funny one is Crystal and Sagar. She makes, so far, she is not impressed by either the Bezos or the Virgin Galactic one.
Really?
She's like, she's like, if you get down to the actual science of it, it's not really space yet. Like what we consider space, like there's a marker that's like that
Right.
both
It's like
Bezos
the
and
troposphere or something, which both of them exceeded. Apparently, Bezos outdid Branson as far as height.
right. And meanwhile, Elon Musk is like, okay, good on you guys. I've been there for 4 or 5 years now, and I'm been way further out. I mean,
Has he?
he's been to fucking Mars, bro.
What?
Dude, we've had this conversation on the show. They sent one of their rockets with a Tesla on the side.
Okay, you said he had been there.
Not he. He is
Okay.
in his company. Sorry.
Okay.
Um,
So see, I thought
But, I mean,
I
he's-
thought he had some plan to go up in a rocket because there was a whole big race as to which one of the 3 billionaires was going up first.
I mean, but at least his company has put men and women, I think, I don't know what this whole thing's, has put people into real space. Like he did a mission. One of his missions was he put a group onto the space station.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, you know, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I agree with Crystal. Like, she likes to make fun of that part of it, and I kind of agree. It's kind of like, well, you kind of got there-ish, but okay.
Yeah,
But-
Branson went up in a plane that was kind of what we did back in the 50s when we were doing a lot of like jet stuff, where it was an airplane that was saddled to another airplane and then was dropped, and then the jet was set off to
Right.
set speed records as far as
Yeah.
like airspeed records.
But it's like, you know, we
But
did this.
Bezos went up in a rocket that actually kind of saw part of the footage of like that rocket like coming back down to land, which was kind of crazy, like autonomous landing basically.
I mean, it was a full-on dick rocket for sure.
Oh,
I think it
totally,
was totally wiener.
totally.
But like one of Crystal's other things that I think she's got a valid point on. I don't 100% agree with all of it, but it's like we did this in the 60s and 50s for that matter. Why are we so impressed that it's happening now, 70 years later?
It's just more of the talk of the commercial prospect of people that have enough money to pay enough to go up and do
Well, I mean,
3 minutes of and say they've crossed the line into quote unquote space.
But what the real thing to get actually excited about, the real reason why I don't agree with Crystal on it is that, okay, fine, you know, billionaire assholes, rich people get to do this, that, and the other. Flat screen TVs. Large flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
High definition TVs.
Okay.
What did they start as?
What did they start as?
Right. When the first couple of high definition flat screen TV came out, what were they?
Oh, I don't
They
know.
were $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 TVs that nobody could really afford except super fucking rich people.
Right.
But they existed, and then once they existed, now you can go down to fucking Sam's Club and buy a 60-inch TV for $250, $300 or something like that. That is the way the economics of it traditionally works. Space might not be the same, but there's many things that
get
they
enough,
don't.
yeah, get enough people behind it
If
with
a-
a little bit
if-
of competition.
Right, if a regulatory factor doesn't come in to change it, it will work its way down just like TVs did. Like, I mean, again, go to your parent, like your house when you were a kid, or your parents' house when they were kids. The TV they had, like a 12-inch black and white, you know, whatever TV that was in a box the size of half the living room, but it only had a 12-inch screen on it. There's a couple of different beers in there if you want one, but you know, and now we're talking about, like, you know, again, same story. TVs went from the rich people, the only people that could afford them were rich ones, and blah 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 blah. And then as they progress, they get better and better, and cheaper and cheaper, and better and better, and cheaper and cheaper.
Right.
Repeat. That's how the evolution of technology works. And so that's to me what is to get excited about this one.
Not necessarily evolution of technology. I mean, I guess we figure out ways to make it cheaper and more efficiently, but it's also the demand of it, where those factories are able to make more money off because they're able to produce more because the demand is higher.
Right, but it's the same. But it's the same idea: is that the demand, the multi-billionaires are the only ones that can afford it now.
All right.
And
It's not
then-
necessarily just the technology getting better there.
But then the YouTube stars and the still super rich, but the not that rich, you know, they start reaching for it, and the demand grows because you go from however many, you know, couple hundred billionaires there are to the millions of millionaires there are. You know, I mean, I know Lance Bass wants to go real bad.
That's what I'm saying. It's the prospect of more commercial
Right, and I think that is
it.
what is to get excited about this one too. That's why I'm saying that's where I kind of disagree a little bit.
But you can already pay, I think it's probably like 10, 20 grand, but you can go up on the airplanes that do the cyclical up and down to actually do the motionless or weightlessness.
Weightlessness, but yeah. Which, I mean, that can be fun. I don't know if it'd be, I don't know. But at this point, you know,
you're not getting the same viewpoint. I mean, they're able to like see the actual spherical
curvature of the Earth.
Yeah,
it's still flat. What are you talking about?
That's true.
If you fell out of it and hit the ground, the ground's going to be flat. That's all I'm saying.
Depends on what part of the ground you fall on. Fall on the side of a mountain, this ain't flat.
I mean, it's just flat. It's just at an angle. It's not level, but it's flat.
It's all perspective.
I guess. I don't know. It's so I don't even know how to make fun of that one properly. It's like that one. I don't know. That one's especially dumb.
Yeah, I can't remember the joke I saw the other day.
I can't remember the joke either.
Atmosphere versus like all these flat earthers. So like they realize they're breathing in, you know, air from the atmosphere, and they're actually breathing air from the atmos flat.
That's a good joke.
Yeah,
it's a very dad.
I didn't quote it perfectly, but it was to that extent.
Yeah, that's a good dad joke. But I like dad jokes because I'm a dad. But I'm trying to think of what else is going on. Like there's something else that popped out on the craziness thing that I wanted to talk about. National news is the same bullshit. Yeah, are you grabbing me a beer? I'll need a beer too.
What you want?
One of these brightly colored Elsts. Shout out to Elst Brewing, everybody. It's my neighbor. You got a couple of good ones.
Hop Dew?
Sure. They were part of our Brewfest event. They'll do it again next year. You guys should come to that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm so frustrated with this. I'm still mad. I don't know. I'm just mad about this.
What you mad
this
about?
Election. I'm trying to figure out this election thing. Like, I find it super interesting the confidence in which I talk to everybody. Like everybody off air.
What is there to be so mad about? Chill, bro.
I still, I guess the one thing I'm legitimately mad about is I think the process of the city elections is bullshit. I think that's a problem. I think it needs to be changed. I like SEMA. SEMA got to take advantage of the setup.
What part of the process?
I have no issues with SEMA as a person or as a city councilor because I don't really know. But at the end of the day, I don't think she should have got the seat in the first place.
Was it some weird trade-off where the person before her went to another position?
No, the city elections, like you're in District 1. August 31st, when you go to primary, you'll have one item on your ballot. And it'll be Tommy Smith, David Hayes, or Elizabeth Murphy. That's all you're going to do on the 31st. When you come back in November, you're going to pick... okay, let me back up. So you have
the top two from each district.
Right, so you have those three. Two of those are going to move on. When you come back in November, you're going to vote for District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. And whoever made it through the primaries in their district.
Right.
And so, again, I use the illustration. I'll use it again. The problem with that to me is, let's say the city council movement has real strong support in District 6. And Harper blows that out in the primaries, blows that out in her general. And then all those city council movement voters that are in District 6 vote for Hayes in District 1 and vote for McMahon in District 4.
Okay.
But let's stay with District 1. Let's say in that primary, Tommy Smith blows out the primary. Hayes barely sneaks by in second place. Like, let's say it's like 70% Smith, 20% Hayes, 10% Murphy. Let's say that's what happens. But David Hayes is going to be your district rep because the city council movement pulled out a bunch of people from other districts. That doesn't make sense to me. Because that is not in your interest as a constituent in District 1. Nick C. I'll just say C so I don't fuck up his last name. Like he said, he put it best. It'd be like, let's say we did that federally, and that, you know, all the primaries happen normally for state or for the Senate, the U.S. Senate in the state of Tennessee, and so Blackburn, blah, whatever. You know, we primary and Blackburn wins the primary and runs up against whoever, but California, or not California, but the national populace gets to pick who our senator is. Does that make sense in that avenue?
It's an exaggerated example.
It's not. It's a perfect example. It would be so.
No, you're putting somebody else on a seat. You're voting for someone else on a seat that still has what to do, which happens within the city.
Right. So Blackburn, let's say Blackburn is who made the primary through.
Right, but it wouldn't be anybody outside of Tennessee that would be able to vote on it in your example.
No, because in my example, the states are the districts as compared to the city.
Okay.
Because Blackburn is going to Washington to do federal politics. So her voting in D.C. affects everybody in the country, so everybody in the country gets to vote on it.
All right. I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense in that. It just doesn't make sense to me. And again, especially if the history that I understand it is correct, is that it was a way to keep people out of seats. The history of it is it was to do the opposite of what my illustration is, but it's the same premise. It's the old version of it was like Garrett Holt in District 6. He's on a weird little outjut of District 6, and he's barely in it. But so he would be of like the old school of, well, Garrett Holt's the type of guy, white male, that we want in city council. We don't want a black lady, Deirdre Harper, to get that seat. So as long as he makes it through the primary, the rest of the city can vote for the white guy like we want to. That's how it was designed. And just because it's the shoe's on the other foot doesn't mean we should continue it either. I just think it's gross. Because again, it doesn't represent.
So you think for the primaries, we should only be able to vote for the district that you're in?
I think for the primary and the general, you should only vote for your district.
For the general.
Yeah. I mean, same way. We don't go to a national ballot and get to vote on the senator of Wyoming. Why would it be any different? I mean, I think part of the issue, is that it helps drive turnout a little bit because you have something to do.
It's like, I'm going to show up
for one
to check one or two boxes.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of effort for one box, but it's your box and it's your people, it's your neighbors, and it should be represented by your representative. Should represent you and your neighbors, not the entire city. That's the point, I think. So I think that needs to be fixed.
Something to get Mr. Chris back in here on.
I mean, I'll talk to him. I've got him scheduled for early August. We're going to go over some stuff. Somewhere in early August, when I talked to him, he's like, well, let's wait until August because the deadline for that petition, that cap the tax petition, is somewhere in early August too. And so we'll be able to talk about whether it made it or not. I don't think it's going to make it. Doesn't sound like it's going to make it as far as I can tell, because it's a lot of fucking signatures you got to get it on there.
Yeah.
But they're also apparently holding a lot of, like, they're asking people to mail in their petition signatures, and so they may have a mailbox full that they haven't started counting yet or adding to the pile or whatever. I don't know how all that works. So we'll see. Which again, I guess that goes back to the first topic of that tax thing, which it's like, what are we capping? Because they're wanting to make it a ballot item every time there's any property tax change. I want to know. That's a good question. Of the city of Knoxville budget, what percentage of the budget is property tax?
Quelle question.
Because I was thinking about that earlier, because like there's a lot. I mean, again, the cap the tax thing. This argument I had with what's her face,
Gloria.
Yeah, this argument. Thank you. The argument I had with Gloria, among other things, talking a lot about property tax and how big a deal it is. And I, again, as a property owner, it is a big deal. I'm not trying to downplay that.
So I was kind of wondering, like, how much is that part of what's actually getting brought in?
See, again, like right here. Okay, going back to the beginning part of the conversation, because this is the chart. This is where that chart came from in the first place. The mayor's office on her budget says the city tax, or did you know, the city tax rate is 27 cents lower than it was 5 years ago and nearly the lowest it's been in more than 30 years. Again, it stands to reason if they didn't actually raise taxes, then it's going to be lower year in and year out every time the assessment comes because the value is going to go up and the percentage has to come down to meet it. So I think it is not an untrue statement, but it is a misleading statement because I think 9 out of 10 people are going to read that and think she lowered taxes, which technically she did.
I said city rate is lower than it was in 5 years. And assuming most people know she hasn't been mayor for 5 years.
True. But
or people should know that she has not been mayor for 5 years.
I mean, the tax obligation one, I think, or the debt obligation one, I think that's a big deal. Public safety, health and neighborhoods. What was my question I asked? Oh, income. Does it show income anywhere?
Yeah.
Proposed annual budget, PDF. Here we go. Numbers and shit, people. This is going to be exciting. Download that 735-page document.
Yeah, I think I remember looking at a few of them, and I just kind of got lost in trying to figure out all these numbers.
Yeah, it always is. And they have all this legal shit in the front end of it, and general fund, special revenue funds. Debt service funds, capital project funds, enterprise funds, Knoxville Affordable Housing
I don't know
Fund.
if they break it down into monies received from just straight property taxes.
State
probably
revenue
in there somewhere.
funds, debt service funds, capital project funds, enterprise funds, affordable housing fund. No. Where's the fucking balance sheet like a big kid? Dog, quit chewing on the pillows. Full-time personnel. Plus or minus employee count.
Yeah, you're still on page like 24 of 153.
No, this is going to be really exciting for everybody listening.
These last few pages are all probably just citations.
Tax rates.
The bibliography.
Local option sales tax collections. In thousands. This is one of the fun things about charts that always scares me. So, in 21, our estimated 21-22 sales tax income for the city is $47 million, and I want to say the budget was $400 million. The total budget is what Mr. Roberto told me. It's like 380 something million is the total budget. Proposed. No. All right. Well, let's assume. I don't know. Yeah, right here. Grand total all funds 484. That ain't right. Somewhere between the two. Anyway, 484. 484 million is the budget. 47 million. So 10% is. Sounds like it reads to me that 10% is sales tax. I don't know if that counts with what they have to kick back for schools too.
Right.
God damn it.
Is this before or after?
Stephanie Welch, I need you.
They've got to allocate.
Yeah. Debt payments, sideways chart. City proceeds. General fund, state street aid fund, trust fund, other sources, federal, state grants, bonded grants. Metro Parking Fund, Convention Center Fund, Fleet Services Fund, Trust Fund, Capital Projects Fund, Fleet Service, Public Service,
Parks and Rec,
Police. I thought this was coming in, not going out. General Fund, Revenues. Here we go. revenues in the 2021 amended budget. $195 million in taxes. Through $24 million in intergovernmental revenue. Oh, that's a gross number. Is that right? Oh, no. Okay, good. Whew. Charges for services, which I'm assuming it's like marriage license. No, that's not. Licenses and permits is only $355,000. I wonder what charges for services are. $2 million a year. Fines and forfeitures is only $700,000 of money that this city steals. Miscellaneous revenues.
No, it's more than that.
$2 million. What? Fines and forfeitures?
Yeah, 650. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Other financing sources, $1.8 million. So, fucking, wait a minute. Help me out here. $238 million in income. And what did we say? A $480-something million budget?
Yeah.
Where's that other $200-something million coming from? Because I'm assuming like intergovernmental revenue is grants and shit.
Mayor's office, maybe? Because that's over $1 million.
That's just what she pays. That's what it costs for. So like those numbers, that 11110 is a department number. So the mayor's office costs.
Oh yeah, it's the administrative costs.
Yeah, it's $1 million a year for the mayor's office in persons, supplies, services, and other fees. Mayor Community Relations Office is $1.5 million. That's all right. So just so we're clear here, the mayor's office to do her job costs $1 million. The mayor's other office to deal with you as the constituent costs $1.5 million for her community relations office. Anyway, all right. So that's that. I'm not any clearer on understanding it.
It's the reason they put it in a 153-page
It sounds
PDF.
It sounds to me like property tax is a large percentage of the total income. Because, again, it reads to me that only $47 million is sales tax revenue. Oh, here we go. Yay, a chart. Where the money comes from.
Ooh,
woohoo!
pie chart.
48% in property tax.
Okay, so almost half.
20% sales tax. They make 9% of their total budget off of KUB.
I was going to say, KUB kicks in.
Which is realistically, that's a utilities tax for me and you.
There's two others, other resources, other intergovernmental, other taxes. It's three others.
7% of state sales tax. What?
So 12% is others.
Wait, I'm really confused. So 7% is state sales tax. So 7% of sales tax that you pay every day is state sales tax. And then 7% of our total local budget. That's so stupid. Why does it go out to come back in? That's so fucking dumb. That drives me crazy. Where the money goes. Public safety, transfers, whatever that means. Non-departmental, engineering, public service, parks and rec. All right, so that was a deep dive into nothing.
Into more confusion.
No, I mean, that helps a lot because I wasn't like, part of me was like property tax. Like part of me was thinking like, what's the big deal on property tax? Why is everybody all bent out of shape about it? I understand it out of pocket. That's a problem. But if it's, I don't know. I guess
half of our budget.
Part of me was thinking it was like 10% of our budget, so it's not that big a deal in the total budget. So what are we arguing about? But yeah, it's a big chunk of our budget. The city lives off property tax. Is really what it comes down to right here. I mean, this goes to the question I've asked 1,000 times.
Do businesses still pay property tax?
Say again?
Do businesses still pay property tax?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Twice, actually, if you want to get down to it. As the person who owns the building, you pay property tax on the building and the property, the actual piece of land itself. But as a business who is renting space, you pay property tax on the things you have in your place. We pay property tax on our coolers and general equipment stuff. We don't have anything that's particularly expensive, so we don't pay much. But we do pay some. We like if you want to think about like a like Chunk Be Gone, be a good example. They have that big piece of property over there off 640 in Western. They probably pay a bunch of taxes on that, but all their trucks that run around in town, they pay property tax on those trucks because that is property of the business.
Huh.
I would assume.
I guess I always assume property as
No, it's property.
physical land property.
No, it's property as things that you own. You and I pay property tax on our cars via like wheel tax and shit like that. That's part of our registration fees. But a business would pay a separate property tax on
assets
on assets that the business owns. Yeah.
Huh.
So, but okay. So this brings me into a broader conversation. Maybe we can go on this for a minute. The whole debacle about what a government is supposed to be doing. Like we've talked about this a number of times. Like what do we think they're supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
So like as I'm looking at this, where the money goes, part of the pie chart. I'm curious of what transfers are and general government. Public safety makes sense to me.
That's a large chunk for transfers.
I know, yeah. Again, not knowing what a transfer is.
I don't know if that's paying out people's contracts if they get moved to another department.
I have no idea. But looking at the pie chart, non-departmental, other, engineering, public service, parks and rec, public safety. So, in the two normal income portions for the city, being property and sales tax, totaling 67%, right? And then looking at the where it goes out part of the pie chart, I see 51. I see 65% to 68% that makes sense to me. And so there's that whole other 30+% on both income and outgoing that I don't know what they are or what they're doing. And so my general rule of thumb is if I don't know what it is or where it's going or what it's doing, I think it's stupid. Where your answer to that is
a lot of these
it could be something important.
Yeah, a lot of these charts, it's a lot of departments that kind of get lumped into the general.
Right, I get it. But
like public safety, that's fire.
Police,
yeah.
Like rescue and...
Right. Lifestar, blah, blah, blah.
Right, but I think, assuming that 42% of public safety is a logical 42% and they're real value items that they're doing, just being generous in my opinion of a government entity doing its job well kind of thing, I see of this total giant budget, 60%, 70% that makes sense, and as well as 70% of the income.
Even like the general government, as far as where the money goes, it's very broad, and there's probably a lot of shit shoved into that 9%.
Right. That's that's secretaries and office clerks and the guy that keeps track of the golf carts.
It's actually less than non-departmental.
It's an interesting point. But again, okay, so forget about the chart that we're looking at right now. And just again, I know I've asked this before, and I know I've made reference to really think about it.
I haven't thought any further about it.
I figured you hadn't, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. What if we're going to take the four governments that you live under the city, you live under the county, you live under the state, and you live under the federal government. What are they supposed to be doing for you? In your opinion, not what they are in the... I guess there's two ways to ask the question. What are they supposed to be doing on the current setup of it? But in your estimation, if you were to build a country, what would you think is it's the job of the government to do for you as a citizen versus what you do for yourself?
It's a very broad question.
Well, yeah. Well, we got time to kill.
Do we?
No, but I don't know. Whatever. This to me is an important conversation because the reason this is such an important topic of conversation for me, and this could be multiple episodes that we talk about this, is I think there's one of the things that Roberto said. He's like, I want our licensures, like our business license and all the taxes and reviews office and stuff like that, to have a customer service mindset. Meaning that if you go in there because you're trying to start a business, I want people in there to be trying to help you get that business started, doing everything they can to make sure that you do what you need to do to get your X's and and T's and I's dotted and all that kind of shit.
We have that at the state level.
I understand that, but my point is, is if you were to write the book, if you were to write the rules, let's just say, you know, I don't know, maybe I should format it more directly and put a questionnaire together or something like that. But if you again, what do you expect to be done for you by your government? Not in the current format, but just in general. Like if it was a blank slate and we were setting the thing up today. You know, if we're going to put together a government, and these are the services that the government provides because it makes sense. It's a communal good. These are the things we want to do. Easy ones like police and fire and stuff like that. Okay,
Right.
you know, but what else? Because the real nitty gritty gets down. I mean, you know, again, we don't know what all is in that 42% of public safety that they're talking about. But but realistically, this is something I'm very I really want to know, and I need to do my own version of it too. I need to think of like a survey sheet to do this in, because I'd really be interested to see what people think. Because I think you'll see some easy answers, and you'll be able to look at people's answers without knowing the person and kind of know where they lean politically. But I really think that's one of the things that's an issue at play, because I think that there is, in the world that we live in now, there's an expectation of government, there's a reality of government, and then there's us. And I think that us sometimes doesn't know the difference between that expectation and the reality. And I think that there's a reality to, you know, again, like a codes enforcement department or whatever. There's a reality to that that we don't understand.
Yeah, the only thing I saw, like a lot of like the fire codes and kind of building codes, a lot of those are in place because there were people that died because certain electrical codes weren't inundated or not inundated, but weren't implemented.
Right, but from the SEMA episode, SEMA brought up a good one that's like in traffic engineering in the city of Knoxville. If you have a curve that is more than X number of degrees per 1,000 feet or whatever,
You gotta have that warning sign.
no, you can't have a driveway on the inside of that curve because the visibility for traffic is not there. That makes sense. Except that same curve applies whether it's a 55 mile an hour state highway or a 10 mile an hour neighborhood. So like if you're a developer and you're building a neighborhood, and just because the way the land lays, you need to curve the road in there, you can't put a driveway on the inside of that curve even though your neighborhood's 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yes, there was good intent with where it started, but it's not realistically applicable in all situations. But since we live in this world of it has to be uniform, that's what we live with.
Yeah, but I mean, how small is your lot? I mean, I guess that's my one big pushback against a lot of the subdivisions that get built nowadays, where you've got your houses takes up more land than the property you have around it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, as a developer, you're trying to squeeze as many houses as you can in the thing. And, I mean, hell, in the market we live in right now, you need to. And so, you know, you have this stretch on the inside of this curve that with the spec of all the other neighborhood, of all the houses around it, you have this big of a lot. Everybody has about this same size lot that you're splitting up in this neighborhood.
That's what we have engineers for.
Do it?
That's what we have engineers for.
For what?
You either change that road because you know that rule's already implemented.
But it's not a safety issue in a neighborhood where it is on a state highway. That's the point. The point is that it's a safety issue. Yes, I agree. When you're going on a 35, 55, 65 mile an hour road. But when you're on a 15 mile an hour road in a neighborhood that's got speed humps every 25 feet.
Okay. You threw in the speed bumps before I was able to put out how many people actually do 15 in a 15 mile per hour zone anyway.
Okay. So what's the point of having speed limits if nobody follows them? I don't understand how that applies. Because the 55 mile an hour highway, most people ride 65 on.
True.
So that same not putting a driveway on the inside of a curve because it's hard to see, okay, it means it's more important there. But again, it's not a universal. Like everything isn't the same, so we can't treat everything the same, but we have to treat everything the same. That's a government thing. That's, I guess, the point.
Well, it's more of a safety thing as far as they know the reactionary time that's going to take you, even if you're going 15 miles an hour, to be able to see a car going around a turn.
But the code doesn't adjust for speed. The code doesn't take that into account. It just says this distance of road, this much curve. Not how fast you're not what the speed limit is on that road. It doesn't take that into account.
It just goes off degree of turn.
Right. The radius of the turn or whatever. I don't know exactly what the technical term, like the technical words are or whatever, but you know, the road curves this much over this much distance. You can't have a driveway on the inside of that curve. It doesn't take into account the speed. And that's what I think Seema was talking about. She's like, that's a rule that's on the books that I think is stupid. It makes sense on a North Shore or Kingston Pike or a Middlebrook or something like that that has a higher rate of traffic and more traffic. But it doesn't make sense if you're a developer trying to put something in an old, wheat field.
Right.
But they have to adjust to that, and that makes it more costly for them to do their project because they're taking one lot on a corner, or they're taking what would be 3 lots in the corner and making it 2 because they can spread the driveways out in the right way to avoid the curve.
No, I'm assuming they've tried to fight it, and I'd be curious to see if there has been pushback against it. And trying
I'm
to
assuming
trying to
Seema brought
rewrite
it
it
up because it's something that they've dealt with. I don't think that
you're saying something like that could be on a gradual scale, like if speed limits are this,
right?
Distance is this, curvature is this,
and I think you're 100% in agreement with Seema on it because Seema was like common sense rules, which implies to me that it's not common sense and that it doesn't do what you're talking about and adjust for the specifics of a location. And so again, I don't know. I really I don't know. Maybe I don't know how to I don't know how to break down my question into parts other than the broader of what is the JFK dot what you can do for your country, whatever. Fuck, I fucked that up. Not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's that same quote is that what is your country supposed to do for you? What is your state supposed to do for you? What is your county supposed to do for you? So my personal general answer is nothing. Very little. Next to nothing. That kind of stuff. And so I'm curious what other people's answers are to that. And again, with and trying to value those things. Like, I guess to put some like real world, like what it does do, for you, not for me, the city picks up your trash.
Yeah.
The city provides your fire and provides your policing. Okay. What else? I mean, obviously there's 153 pages of what your city does and how much it costs to do it. But what else should it be doing? Because I agree that because you've made the statement a number of times. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that we don't know about that's probably important. I want to know what those things are. And then I want to be able to argue whether or not I think those are important too or not. Like, I think codes and inspection is an interesting animal. I think there's a number of different parts to that. And it's like, yeah, we don't want people building fucking shacks with 3 stories on them. They're going to fall over as soon as you put a couch on the second floor because it can't handle the weight.
Right.
I agree. But I don't know that the government's going to do that anyway. Because I think...
What do you mean that the government's not going to do that anyway?
I mean, they can do that. They can do the parts and pieces, and they can do the codes inspection and stuff like that.
And I guess that's where it gets down to the legality of, if a building was approved and that it was built to spec, if something were to happen, the contractor that built it is able to come back and say, hey, we built this to spec.
Okay, so that spec was wrong. What happened?
I mean, that's where it would take investigators to figure out, was it water damage that weakened the trusses or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. But I mean,
I think it's able to take some liability off of like the original contractors. Like, we built everything to code, so it wasn't anything that was, outside of this. There was a fire. We had it, and that's, I don't know. It's not necessarily taking the blame off of somebody else. It's like, well, we had a city inspector come out and check our junction box. So if the fire department and fire marshal is saying that the fire started from the junction box, we had that inspected. It's not on us.
But why does the government have to be the one to do the inspection? A. B. The state...
I don't know. That's just where you get
the
uniform code of it.
To be a, quote, certified electrician, and you have to take an exam and do process through the state anyway.
Right.
So the guy that's the guy that is building the breaker box is required by the state to take an exam so that the state, in a different version of it locally, comes back around and checks his work. Seems a little redundant. So what's the point of certifying a state licensed electrician if the different version of the state, being the county or the city, is going to come back behind that electrician and check their work anyway? That's a start.
I'm assuming just to, I don't know if it's more of an insurance thing, but just to have somebody do something, you have to have a licensed contractor or whatever in which to do that. You can't just pick like Joe Schmo off the street. It's like he may have gone to MIT and knows how to rewire a rocket or whatever.
But realistically, why not?
If he's not licensed by the state, it's not a valid contractor.
But
why? Even auto mechanics.
But if I'm going to have a guy come back behind me, like if I want to fix if I want to do a project that I'm supposed to pull a license for, or a permit for from the state, from the county, if I want to do if I want to do some electrical work in my house that I'm supposed to pull a permit for, right? I'm pulling that permit, and to close that permit, I have to get an inspection. So if I have to be inspected on the final product, why do I need a licensed contractor to do it? Why can't I just have any Joe Schmo, whether it's an MIT grad or a fucking 7-year-old, do it if it's going to be inspected after the fact? It's redundant. That specific one is redundant.
I don't think so.
I do. I really do. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Because if the inspection is to prove that the job was done correctly, then the license to do the job means that you know how to do the job correctly is the same thing. Yeah, you're right. You could option not to do the job correctly while you're there. Sure. But I have to get it checked anyway. So I
guess that puts liability on the contractor that is licensed. Their license could then be pulled.
So if, again, staying on this electrical thing, and again, I don't know the answers to any of this, but staying on this electrical thing a second. So let's say a licensed contractor comes out, pulls the permit, does the work. The state inspector comes by, the county inspector, whoever it is, comes by, checks his work, says it's okay. House fucking burns down from an electrical fire caused by whatever work they did.
All right.
So
who's liable? I'm not sure. If it's the inspector or the contractor, I would lean more towards the contractor because they did the actual
so then your whole
hard
argument
work of rewiring it.
So the whole argument of this inspection being in place to help protect the contractor from liability.
The inspector's coming to make sure everything's up to code, not to actually trace down wires, run ohm meters, and make sure resistance and power is running and everything.
But again, I'm
saying...
saying...
in my limited knowledge of it.
In your limited knowledge of it, what value is that to you as the homeowner?
Of knowing that someone's licensed to work on something?
Or of knowing that the inspector came out. Really, more importantly, the license is secondary. That's a secondary thing that I like to bitch about. But knowing that the county or the city came out and inspected the work that the guy that has the fucking license did for you. What does that do for you?
It's going to put me at ease.
To what? That he did the job right?
In hopes of it, yes. You have to hope that they're doing their job correctly and they're not just
so then again, I
burnt out not doing their job.
Then I follow again with, if something is to happen, whose fault is it? Okay. If it was inspected. Again, that doesn't make sense.
All right, play the devil's advocate and do the converse of it.
Okay.
What happens in that? You don't have a licensed contractor. You don't have anybody inspected. What then happens if a building burns down?
It sucks. Which apparently is the same answer for if you have a licensed contractor.
You try to have your insurance company pay for it. What's your insurance company going to say?
I don't know. Whatever any excuse they can to get out of it. So is that so? Government's here to protect us against the insurance companies? Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's generally with like the whole liability of having an insurance or a licensed contractor do the work, it having it inspected by someone that's certified to do inspections.
Okay. I mean, I follow what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you, except I don't see the value for the dollars. Because you could have the insurance company come out and inspect it. and the insurance guy comes out and inspects it, they can't bitch about it because they did the inspection. But that wouldn't clear a permit. That wouldn't clear anything for you as a homeowner with your local municipality. But that gets the insurance part covered.
I mean, in that scenario, I would assume that the insurance inspector would be a certified quote-unquote inspector.
Sure, I agree with that. But I'm saying if the point of the government inspection is to help protect you, I guess, as the homeowner,
well, it's also
from a shitty contractor.
It's all in there to protect the city itself.
The one that's going to pay on the other side.
It's also there to protect the city and what's the things that are surrounding it. So, I mean, in most like cities, you have buildings that are right on top of each other.
Okay, in the instance that we're using fire as the example of the catastrophe,
it's a single standing building.
I mean, no, I'm not trying to change the example, but yes, in the one that we're using, that it would cause a fire, and then that fire could spread to other buildings.
All right, and that's a lot of the rules kind of came into place when that was more common, when we didn't have very great fire service, and a building caught fire, and you're burning down 45 surrounding buildings around it, or at least having fire damage that was causing 2 buildings all around it.
Right. Okay. I just don't like it. Doesn't all piece together in the world we live in now, to me. And again, it goes back to I don't doubt that we have decades and centuries at this point of piled on rules on top of piled on rules that makes it more complicated than it needs to be. That we could probably dismantle this thing and start over and do better, because you're right. I don't disagree that a lot of this shit went into place when you had buildings stacked on top of each other.
That's why you have buildings that are adjoining. You have fireproof walls that are rated for whatever kind of rating.
Right, it's a 3-hour wall.
Right.
Again, I don't know. It's got way detailed on a version of was supposed to be a broader topic, but. And you're not wrong. It's going to be
the codes are in place for a reason.
I don't know that I agree.
The hassle you have to go through to meet the code.
I don't know that I agree I don't know that I agree with the constitutional standing of the reason. I guess is kind of what I'm getting at.
The constitutional standing of the reason.
The idea that we're a free society and that we're individuals that do what individuals do and that kind of thing. Like I don't know that I agree that the reason is truly for the communal good anymore. I acknowledge that it might have been. It might have been in its time when they went into place that it made sense logically for this is a communal good. This is going to protect neighbors from each other. If a house burns down, makes it less likely that house is going to burn their neighbor's house down. I get that in its time. But in the current era, I don't know that some of those apply the same way anymore. But we still play the same rules.
How do you think it's that much different?
What do you mean?
I'm asking you what you mean.
Well,
you're saying in the olden days.
Well, you're the one that has referenced multiple times that these things went into place when X, Y, and Z existed. And now, yes, X,
I'm
Y,
saying
and Z,
the beginning of these rules.
Right, and X, Y, and Z still exist in the sense that...
100 years ago, we had very little regulations of businesses whatsoever. And it's only been through the past 100...
It's not businesses, it's regulations whatsoever, period. We didn't have regulations of people either. Because we're talking about personal property. I'm sorry, that's a specific I want to make sure is clear right now.
Okay.
I don't like... I
thought we were talking about businesses and having to get them inspected, blah, blah, blah.
No, we were using an example of when you bring in a business to do a job that has a license and blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
But when we're talking about regulations and stuff, it's on individuals as well. I just want to...
Sorry, I was thinking commercial property, sorry.
No, I'm talking about here. I was when we were talking about the electoral box thing, I was talking about my house. Like if I was going to do it in my house, if I was going to have because I pulled the permit and did all the proper things with my deck, like I was supposed to. But what happens if I didn't? What did that do? Like, what is a county inspector going to tell me about that deck? That the guy that built that deck that has a license from the state isn't going to do anyway. I mean, I acknowledge
I'm
and
not the
agree there's shitty people out there.
I'm not the person to ask for that, but
But I don't. But,
I like to assume that there is a good, valid reason for it.
and I like to assume that there's not, and I guess that's where we're at the divide here. I will grant you that there was a good, valid reason for it, but not that reason applies anymore. Because I think, again, going on the electrical example, like the leaps and bounds that we've made in technological advances in the electricity and how electricity works, and how we feed it to our houses and how we feed it through our houses and how it connects and all that kind of stuff, is light years different than it was when we first had a lot of electrical fires in houses and shit like that. Not that we don't have them anymore, and not that there's still ways that kids stick forks and shit and do all sorts of stupid stuff that continues to somehow have house fires from electricals.
I think watching this old house, I think now, like if you have a contractor come in and change out an outlet, it has to be one of the new outlets that has almost, I guess, some kind of thing behind the two little main slits that you can't do one without doing both. Like basically, you couldn't take like a paper clip and stick it into a new outlet that got replaced.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's
That it
also
actually
this
like
old house.
it's almost like a little door behind it that.
Yeah, but that's also this old house, so it's Boston or it's New England area, so they have different codes than we do here. But
I think it's a national code, but
it might be.
It's possible, yeah.
I don't know if you have a national codes on electrical work. I think it's state by state. But anyway, my point is, I assume the worst. I guess you assume the best, and I'd like to find the middle somewhere, because I don't like again, like at the new store, like the city is not letting him do what he wants to do with that building. As far as I understand it. At least that's his excuse. He might be lying because it's easy to blame shit on the government. But he has a plan. He has a project. He's paying the architect to do all this work. Architect's got certifications from X, Y, fucking Z. He's got engineers that have to work on it too, because they work for the architect to make sure the building can do what the architect wants it to do.
Yeah, I've wonder how long that building's actually been there.
It's old, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But at least the argument that I'm hearing from the landlord is that the city is not letting him do it. He has architects and engineers who are certified and trained and have documentation from states and local municipalities to be able to do the job that they're doing. But the city says they can't. How does that make sense?
Don't know.
And for whose benefit is it? That's the real question. Because it would certainly benefit that building and the patrons of that building and the customers of the patrons of that building to have that new front on that building. It would certainly benefit that landowner because he'd be able to fill some of the empty units in that building.
He's already done part of that building, so I don't see how he got away with that, but he can't do the rest.
I don't know. He does what he does. I'm not going to speak to his motives or actions, but
I mean, it looks like that whole thing was kind of built at the same time, maybe a decade or so apart, but
right. There's some parts that have had upgrades and some parts that haven't. My point is, what is it specifically that the city's given him a no to when he has a team of people who know the rules, know the architecture, know the engineering, that say this will work?
He just can't get the approval to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And again, the other example would be our beer fest. We wanted to do it in the parking lot. We have all that. We are allowed to serve beer. We're allowed to do this, that, and the other, but we had to have a special permit to do something different.
Right. We just didn't have time to get on the beer board's permit list.
Okay, but even that whole process, had we done that whole process,
right,
would anything have changed about the way we did it? Not a second of it.
Yeah, it would have been in the parking lot.
Right, but as far as what we had planned on security and containment, all the different things that I had planned before we realized we couldn't do it in the parking lot, nothing would have changed at all. But we would have got our permit and we would have paid our fee. What did that do for us? Who did that protect? What was the point of that regulation? And whose benefit is that? Nobody's. Not even the city's, for that matter. Because that's tax revenue that we would have brought in for the city if we would have been able to do it bigger than we did it. That's what I don't get. And I think I could sit through and I could pile through thousands of examples, and it's like, yeah, the rules on the books. But why? Who's it helping? Who's it benefiting? Who's it protecting? And
I'm assuming it just protects businesses from just having willy-nilly pop-up parties in their parking lot.
okay, what's the problem with having a willy-nilly pop-up party in your parking lot? Like, who's that hurting? Who is it damaging?
I don't know.
Who are we? Like, again, I'm open to the conversation, but
You're asking the wrong people.
what do you mean? I'm at you
Yes.
because
Because I don't fucking know.
and that's the point. I don't know either. But my assumption when I don't know is that there's
It's
no
just
good reason.
assume it's bad.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I assume that
It comes down to probably liability as well.
liability for who? The city has no liability in the conversation. If their interest, like most people, is their own, they don't have a liability there.
I don't know.
Again, going back to the original part of the conversation, is what are they supposed to do? What are the things they're supposed to protect us from, or supposed to assist us with, or supposed to help us do, or keep us from doing? What are those things that make sense that you feel personally like a city should do for you? Though that's the question I want answered, and we can start it at the small version and say, what do you feel like the $400 million budget that the city of Knoxville has should be doing for you? Because you are a city resident. I am not. What should you have that I don't because you pay more for your square footage of housing than I do?
I don't, but
You do.
in a roundabout way.
Against the
I
value
guess.
of your home, you pay more because your landlord pays more in taxes than I do. So what should you get as a city resident that I don't as a county resident?
I mean, I don't think there's anything I should get as a city resident versus a county resident.
Then why do we have a city government?
We're not getting into the metro.
I'm not trying to get into metro per se, but what's the point then? What are we doing? I mean, just flat out for the $250,000 salary that Mayor Kincannon gets.
I mean, I don't know the difference between taxes versus city versus county. I know city residents are paying city and county.
It's property tax. The only difference.
I mean, it's nice to have the free trash pickup.
Okay.
I've never had to deal with the fire department, so I don't have to deal with having to have called Rural Metro to come out and try to sign up for their $600 a year,
Right.
just in case insurance
Right.
program.
And then try to fucking
debate
blackmail
with
you
them
like they did to me.
Right. All I had to do was look at a map.
Who did?
All they would have had to do was look at a map.
Who? Rural Metro?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in there. I'm in Rural Metro's district. What are you talking about? The city guy that came out should have looked at a map.
Right. Sorry, the
Yeah.
city guy.
When the city truck came out. So thanks for paying the taxes on those city trucks that came out to my house for no
Yeah.
good reason. Appreciate that. But I'm just saying, okay, I mean, maybe that's okay. So we're not going to be able to do it tonight, but that's what I want you to think about. I really want you to think about that truly, like 100%. What are the things that the city does for you and is available to you as a city resident that isn't available to me as a county resident?
No, thank you.
No, I really want you to think about it. I want to
God
know.
damn you.
Because I think this is important. This is why that government exists. It's to help you as one of their residents, not to help me because I'm not a resident. I take advantage of city perks or whatever you want to say because I do business in the city, both professional business and personal business, whether I want to go shopping or not. Because thanks to Mayor Ash, we have almost all the commercial property in Knox County is in the city somehow. But, whatever. That's an aside. We still get our school money out of it, so it doesn't matter.
That doesn't seem...
Hardin Valley's not, but almost all of Kingston Pike until you get to Pellissippi, almost. I think it's actually past Pellissippi. I think it's right wherever the Farragut Township starts is where the city of Knoxville ends on Kingston Pike. All of North Shore, all the big business on
it's
North
pretty
Shore.
much like Campbell Station on Kingston.
Right.
Anything past that is Farragut.
Right up to Shod Road on Clinton Highway. Up to the top of the hill of Halls. Halls doesn't count, but from the hill at the top of Halls back down Broadway is all city. All of Chapman Highway, that matters is city.
That matters.
I mean, really, because come on now.
You go down far enough, yeah, it's don't give a fuck about you anymore.
You get past you get right there to Anyway, my point is, again, I really want you to think about this because I really want to know what your thoughts are, because you are paying twice as much in taxes per dollar value of your property that you rent, because you're paying that to the landlord through your rent. You are paying twice as much as me per dollar value.
Is it really twice as much?
Yeah. City property tax and county property tax are exactly the same. If you live, your house is in the county as well as the city, and so it pays county property tax and city property tax. It's the same number. What do you get for your double payment?
I get trash, which adds up. I mean, the last place I lived, I think they went through 3 different companies trying to find like secondary companies.
I mean,
it wasn't cheap.
When I did trash pickup here, it was $75 a quarter, so that's $25 a month.
Yeah.
So $300 a year.
Talk about county taxes. I don't know what that difference would be.
I mean,
just in trash pickup alone, I don't know how that would equate of just that one, I guess, convenience.
Right. But I mean, I'm already immediately arguing against part of that, because it's not going to value the same anyway, because you're running trucks through every neighborhood. Like for me, if I was going to do, I have options, and if I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, they have to add me to the route, which is not automatic, where they're driving to your neighbor's house, to the other neighbor's house, and all that kind of stuff. So the cost for them to do trash pickup to your house is null, because they're doing all the houses around you. So it's a little bit different,
typically, yeah.
Specifically, but that is on. I mean, we can run that as a number, because again, I can think about it for me. What am I getting for my property tax in Knox County, and is it worth it? What should I be getting? What I should be getting is, roads and shit. They generally, they're okay. They need to be better, but they're okay.
Definitely.
And again, going back over a year ago now, first time we had Todd on, he was the only county candidate that we talked to, at least at the time, which was like 4 back then, that was openly asking for a raise in taxes because he wanted X, Y, and Z to get spent on.
Right.
Okay. I'm not going to fucking complain if I feel like there's value in the money spent.
Right.
But I don't, if I don't see the value now, how is adding to it am I going to see the value? That's the concern in it.
That's where some.
No, I'm going to go on quick tangent on that. Todd's argument, and a number of times I've heard this argument, is the county needs to raise taxes, is because they haven't in years. That was the argument. Yet the same group of people that says we need to raise county taxes because we haven't in years is the ones bragging about how city taxes are going down. Sorry, tax rates.
Yeah.
Just that's a political bullshit thing. Anyway, I apologize. I interrupted with that.
No. I was going to say that's kind of the part of it being a larger city and taxes going towards things we don't know. You have problematic areas to where they say, hey, this intersection needs a crosswalk because we've had incidences of people getting hit or whatever by cars, to where money's going to these smaller little pockets that don't affect 90 to 95% of the rest of the county, but that money brought into the city or that county is being focused on one area that doesn't quite affect everybody else. But it is to the betterment, I guess,
right.
of that smaller area.
I acknowledge that collectivism is a thing. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to collectivism in this conversation, but collectivism needs to have a collective value.
Right.
And so to say that, okay, this one section of town has gotten a whole bunch of nice things that the city has put in there and that we've all collectively paid for. That's not collectivism. That's not proper collectivism, at least. You know, is that, well, this one area needs all this stuff, so we're all going to pay for it, but I never get anything.
Well, I mean,
from it.
in the perfect world, it goes to the places that are most needed it, but also at the same time, in a unfortunate level in which it is, it also, you have places that are having national things brought to it because it's a higher income, higher tax base, higher influential area of town.
Well, and you need to protect that, but they're paying the lion's share, and so you need to protect that value so that they continue to pay the lion's share. I mean, that's a strategic business move. On the bottom line, you can't have the people that are paying the most in taxes not seeing anything for it, or they're going to stop. They're going to move out, they're going to move out, and then the value of the property goes down, and then you have less income. You need that income to do the other things you want to do.
Because that house is going to lay vacant?
Maybe. Not right now. I mean, now is a bad example, but it could be. It becomes a less desirable place for people to live in the higher income brackets, and you need that fucking $7 million mansion on Lions View or whatever there. You need that to exist. Because that, I'd be curious. I mean, I don't know what 2%, 7. I mean, that's at least in the residential property portions of Knoxville, that is the highest paid amount of land in Knoxville into the highest portion of the city budget. So you need that to exist because that one piece of land probably brings in enough money to do 2 crosswalks or so, something. You need that high income portion to exist, or you don't have money to spend. So you have to cater a little bit to that crowd.
You have to.
I mean, yeah.
Just
unless we got all
just in the fear that they might leave.
I mean, I would assume, yeah. I don't know. I haven't sat down and had that conversation with anybody. I haven't been in the room when that conversation's happening, but I would assume yes.
I mean, I get the logic of it. It just makes piss more sense to me, but
it. I mean, I guess. I mean, again, like there's
doing something out of fear or doing something out of necessity.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it's like, we could put a crosswalk in here so more people don't die, but we had $20,000 to spend in our budget. We should fix up this other place and put a street light up because that place pays more money in our.
Right, and we're afraid that if we don't put that street light in, then we lose.
They might move.
Right, I get what you're saying. I don't know. I couldn't rationalize it any other way than what I did. So
there's a lot of debatable ethical aspects of much of everyday life.
I mean, I don't know. I guess for me, the reality is that we're all selfish people on some level. There's, I'm on record.
We have a desire for self-preservation, yes.
Right, and I'm on record as saying that I don't believe in altruism. I don't think it's a real thing.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm just saying I don't think it's. I think there's a selfishness to altruism.
I wish there were more soldiers that could tell you, when they jumped on a grenade and saved the rest of their company, that there is a such thing as altruism.
I mean, I think there's a hero complex there, but
all right,
they want to be the hero.
They wanted to die the hero.
I mean, anyway, it doesn't matter. That's a whole other episode. I know. I think there's that is maybe an exception to my general rule, but I still think even in that in the process of it, you feel good about yourself for doing it, which makes it by definition not altruistic. In the process of it, in the split second, you're thinking, I'm saving my friends. I'm a good person. Therefore, not altruistic.
I don't think they're thinking they're a good person.
I think that's my interpretation. Unimportant. Last call.
No mas.
Come on. Nothing?
Yeah, I did the one little factoid of a little bit of Color of the Sun that I learned recently. Thought that was interesting.
All right. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson comes through like a champ, as usual.
Most deaf.
almostinagreement.com/cityelections21. Check it out. It's the badassery of badasseries. It's just a quick little simple guide to what's going on for the city election sake of stuff.
Quick, it was 2 hours.
Do it?
Quick, it was 2 hours.
What?
I thought you were talking about the length of the episode.
Oh, no. I mean, we're not trying to be perfect.
I thought you were saying it was just quick. I'm like, no, man, we went for 2 hours.
No, I was saying the city elections guide is 2 hours.
Sorry.
So you get on there, you go to almostinagreement.com/cityelections21. And it's got links to KGIS so you can figure out what district you're in. It's got links to the Knox County Election Commission, make sure you're registered and that kind of thing, as well as a little bit on each of the candidates and links to their individual websites so you can learn more about them there. We're Almost Agreement, almostagreement@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Like us, share us, follow us, friend us, whatever it is there. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. You can get all the episodes there, as well as your favorite podcast provider. While you're on your podcast providers, please subscribe there and give us a good, solid review. Tell your friends about us, that kind of stuff. Almost Agreement, City Elections. Get out and do it.